You've got to give a win to the creation of an iconic, world-changing line, right? Such a simple yet complex idea, especially given the advanced technology a long time ago. Possibly the most recognizable film theme of all time. John Williams, sir, you are the master. And the text scroll is one of the best ways to dump exposition clearly and concisely. Also, attention to detail will come up a lot, and the text scroll is no exception. The letters were individually cut out and the camera was slowly moved over the huge text. Also, thanks Rogue One crew for them plans. And what an opening shot. Will be copied, parried, homaged for the next couple centuries at least. You think you're seeing a big spaceship until the Star Destroyer pierces the frame and then grows beyond the borders of the frame. Such a genius way to shoot the Devastator, and really set the stage for the movie. Also, the familiar gives way to foreign as we pan down from what could be Earth's moon to show a second moon-looking body and then a huge planet that's clearly not Earth. Attention to detail is off the chain in this film. They built 2 robot suits from scratch and then roughed them up to be world-worn. We joke a lot here at CinemaWins about anti-Stormtrooper aim, and by we I mean I, but we're introduced to the Stormtroopers not as bumbling idiots who can't shoot the broadside of a Scarif barn, but as tactical soldiers more like Obi-Wan describes them later. And what an opening action set piece! Right into it. Stormtroopers versus Rebels. Doesn't matter how goofy and chintzy looking his costume is in this movie. Look at him. Look at that samurai-inspired suit that's all beat up from his last scuffle in Rogue One. He towers over the troopers. Listen to his breathing, his voice.
Commander, tear this ship apart until you found those plans and bring me the passengers. I want them alive.
His voice makes your soul shake. I feel bad for David Prowse, but James Earl Jones was the only voice for the job. Also, Darth Vader is a beast. He lets us know who he is by picking a full-grown Captain Antilles up with one hand, choking him and tossing him aside like a ragdoll.
There goes another one.
Hold your fire. There's no life forms.
A plot device to be sure, but any type of weapon has an energy cost. So why would you just randomly shoot an escape pod? Also, kill ratios apparently played a part in Imperial promotion, so blowing up an unmanned pod would have counted against them?
Several transmissions were beamed to the ship by rebel spies.
I almost had him. I was this close. You should have seen me in that hallway.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a member of the Imperial Senate on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan.
Princess Leia. She was a real rebel. No hint that she's lying regardless of what Vader thinks he knows. Rest in peace, Carrie Fisher.
Go that way. You'll be malfunctioning within a day, you nearsighted scrap pile.
Gotta love a little robot bickering. And what a bold narrative move to actually follow the comic reliefs for such a long time in this film. Borrowing from Akira Kurosawa for sure, but we don't even meet the main antagonist until we're well acquainted with 3PO and R2. And even though we never know exactly what R2 is saying, he always has an intonation that at least lets you have an idea of what he means. One thing Star Wars is never lacking in are inventive creatures and alien races. While Jawas are jerks to R2 units, they have a backstory that you can pick up really quickly just by watching them, even without ever understanding a word they say. In just a few minutes, we establish they collect robots and pedal them around in their huge transport, which is an amazingly detailed miniature. And the various and distinct sounds the robots make are impressively diverse. Okay, I'm torn on this one. I'm mad because the theatrical versions of these films only exist in standard definition at this point. We may never get HD theatrical cuts, so get that thing out of there. However, I will say they paid due attention to detail and had the tail pushing sand around. Clearly the way the feet move is meant to disperse weight so it wouldn't leave huge footprints. And in the far off shots, it does add a further alien feel to this universe, which so far has just been in a ship and on a desert. I still have a hard time telling my brain these are miniatures. The detail and composition of the shots is amazing. Gotta give the Jawas some salesmanship points. They must roll that spider arm droid out at every showing, but no one ever takes him.
Luke?
Luke's theme. It just warms your soul. Even if this is your first time seeing this movie, when Luke's around, you feel at home.
Can you speak Bocce?
Of course I can, sir. It's like a second language to me. I'm as
All right, shut up. I'll take this.
Shutting up, sir.
Polite, patient, expeditiousness.
You'll be very pleased with that one, sir. He really is in first-class condition. I've worked with him before.
Helping out a friend. Love Luke's response, like, you made the sale, dude. Chill, just chill. Wouldn't that pilot you shame later on about blasting Womprats in your T-16 be surprised at the size of your T-16?
Not unless you can teleport me off this rock.
I don't think so, sir. I'm only a droid and not very knowledgeable about such things.
You're looking for data.
I'm not much more than an interpreter and not very good at telling stories.
Unless a bunch of Ewoks make me their god. But ironically, that could still be true, since it doesn't take any panache to make the events of episode 4 and 5 interesting.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Call it a writing crutch, Really, call it whatever you want. But just as a recap of how powerful the Force is, Leia's ship was being attacked by her bio-dad. So she sent a hidden message to a man that used to fight with her father and bio-dad and a droid previously owned by that man. That ended up being captured by Jawas and purchased by her bio-brother, all on the planet her bio-dad was born. The Force will find a way. And an important plot point that I have noticed some people miss is that Tatooine wasn't a coincidence. Leia was headed there to find Obi-Wan.
But my ship has fallen under attack, and I'm afraid my mission to bring you to Alderaan has failed.
Blue milk! Wait, that's not a reference to anything yet. But that actually brings me to one of my favorite things about this movie. There's no world or character intros, other than the text scroll. We're all just expected to figure out what's going on. It's like we're watching a movie made for people living in this universe. Jawas come by to sell you crap, droids are bizarrely second-class citizens, and people drink blue milk that's probably from half-beetle, half-cow bugalows.
I don't think he exists anymore. He died about the same time as your father.
People, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, were very fond of using words in tricky ways and telling half-truths if you look at it from their perspective. In other words, lying. But Owen had one job. Don't let Vader find Luke. So he was doing his best. Some shots end up being iconic without the DP or director planning on it. The way Lucas lingers on this shot, though, makes me think he had some idea. Really leaning into that crazy old wizard tag there, Ben, huh?
He claims to be the property of an Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time.
Ooh, you take it for granted now, but the mystery. Ooh-wee, the anticipation. Throughout this movie, we're given hints at the long and storied history of these characters. I can remember the feeling of wanting to be a part of it so badly.
You know him?
Well, of course I know him. He's me.
I mean, even if it only lasts 12 seconds.
Well, then the droid does belong to you.
Don't seem to remember ever owning a droid.
Did anyone ever really own their droids? R2 was just his co-pilot, so this could be another half-truth. Also, he's old with one foot in the Force.
You go on, Master Luke. There's no sense in you risking yourself on my account. I'm done for.
Dramatized selflessness. Also, 3PO gets that bump on the head that wasn't there before from the Sand People, and it's there the rest of the film, even after he's all shined up in the end. So, continuity.
You fought in the Clone Wars?
And along with the you-know-this-world feeling, there's only the slightest bit of fish out of water played by Luke.
Father's lightsaber.
Generosity. Just about the best generosity win I've ever given out.
How did my father die?
A young Jedi named Darth Vader. He betrayed and murdered your father.
It's easy for us cynical, critical, realist people to assume that Lucas wrote this one script and, while he may have wanted sequels, had nothing in mind. He reportedly told Mark Hamill he'd be in multiple trilogies. Why couldn't he have known? I choose to believe he did, and knew exactly who Vader was. Vader, Vater, Father. I know there are people who don't believe Lucas had planned the Empire twist from the beginning, but this is all accurate, and the prequels confirm it. Anakin did betray himself in becoming Vader.
I can't get involved. I've got work to do.
Luke, it's like there's a call to adventure, man. Get it together. It's not like anything could possibly push your hand. Oh.
I want to come with you to Alderaan.
Yeesh. I can cut Rogue One some slack when you realize that Tarkin actually looked like CGI of himself. Look at that cheek structure.
The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
Even now, Vader understands one of the main themes of this trilogy, technology versus nature, or in this case, the Force.
Your sad devotion to that ancient religion has not helped you conjure up the stolen data tapes, or given you clairvoyance enough to find the rebels' hidden fort.
There is magic in the the SWU. Seriously, this is the first real confirmation that it's not just future tech and the Force isn't just parlor tricks. The Force is real.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Badass bad guy.
Only Imperial Stormtroopers are so precise.
When they want to be, so you gotta add that caveat. They're precise when they're not ordered to be imprecise. Man, PG means something totally different now. Only Guardians our main protagonist ever knew burned to a visceral, mangled skeleton. Brutal. But Williams isn't gonna let an opportunity for some thematic resolve through music go by. Right? Lucas had to know. Connecting these two twins by them both going through turmoil at the same time?
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
Lines of dialogue can't just be wins because they become iconic in the last 4 decades, whether they inspired a Sonoio song or not. They have to actually have significance or inspire something, which is why Obi-Wan being an awesome mind-controlling wizard is freaking amazing, and our second proof of the Force's power. And don't tell me it's just influence, he makes that dude parrot him.
He can go about his business.
You can go about your business.
He can have a strong influence on the weak-minded.
Which makes that line modesty. Ignoring all the CGI, the blending of practical sets and matte paintings is phenomenal. Attention to detail everywhere you look.
This place can be a little rough.
Seriously, the actual devil hangs out there. Did 3PO just waddle up like a Muppet? Did you see that? Another amazing scene, obviously filled with creatures built from scratch and costumes that make Luke stick out, and we feel how uncomfortable and on edge he is. Seeing things he's clearly never seen before, hearing sounds and languages he's never heard before. And it makes sense as an intergalactic truck stop.
He doesn't like you.
I'm sorry.
I don't like you either.
Honesty. And quick comeuppance. Ha! And Figure and Dan and the modal nodes keep on playing. Come on, you didn't know the name of the Cantina Band? Wookiee Wipe.
Han Solo.
Gosh darn right you are.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
It's a ship that made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs.
I wonder if I'm more interested in perpetuating the joke I started in Attack of the Clones or doing the mental gymnastics that everyone does to retroactively make Lucas's sciencey sounding mumbo-jumbo mix-up make sense. Haven't decided yet. Okay, I've decided. Here's the thing. That line is a win for me no matter how you spin it. If Lucas is telling the truth, yes, Han is actually boasting about his ship's navigation skills rather than speed, though later to claim
She'll make 0.5 past light speed.
seems a little paradoxical if speed isn't what matters. But sure, both can matter. The second way it's a win is if it was just a little typo in the script and late 70s Lucas couldn't Google parsec and he thought it was a unit of time. That's honestly charming to me. Third, and what I choose to believe, though Lucas's adamant claim that he meant what he said sort of refutes this, but come on, who can remember what you were actually thinking decades earlier? I choose to believe Han was testing Luke and Ben to see if he could swindle them. If they don't call him out, he knows he can. If they do, he can use the explanation Lucas came up with about the nav computers. Poor Greedo. If only he could have gotten that shot off. Well, glad Han shot first and there's literally nothing to argue about. Really solidifies Han as a character as a guy willing to do whatever it takes to get by, including murder a guy in a crowded bar, and make it out alive, which totally pays off later.
Ever since the XP-38 came out, they just aren't in demand.
At first I thought this is what those two Stormtroopers were talking about in Rogue One, but that was the V-tier BT-15. Either way, Luke, you get a win for selling your most valuable possession to follow an old kook on a Force learning mission. Continuing things I'm thankful for, I'm so glad no one ruined the character suspense of a guy we learn to fear and won't meet until the final film in the trilogy. Super glad any scenes containing said character were left on the cutting room floor.
Jabba, you're a wonderful human being.
Okay, that's the one positive thing that came out of this. Han can turn anything around. The Millennium Falcon in its prime. Ish. Yes, sir.
I recognized your foul stench when I was brought on board.
Alright, you've noticed that Leia has a pseudo-British accent when talking to Tarkin, right? I'm sure it was something simple. Carrie Fisher once said if you can say the foul stench line in an American accent, she'd pay you. But as a spy, still pretending to be an ambassador on a diplomatic mission, of course she's gonna try to fit in. So it makes sense that once her cover and planet are blown, she drops the accent.
Dantooine.
Nice, Lucas. Personally, Perth, Vars, Rattern, or Jupiter would have been my choices. Jokes aside, when you consider we have countries named Romania and Albania, Afghanistan and Pakistan, Switzerland and Ireland, so on and so forth, I give him credit for a galactic theme. Gotta say, blowing up a peaceful planet is a good way to get you to not have any conflicted feelings about Tarkin, Vader, and the Empire in general.
Droid don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose.
It's like the best hustle ever. Chewie's just a big softie, but he's big. So rather than trying to win at anything, just have Han tell his opponents to throw the game.
You don't believe in the Force, do you?
Spoken like a true teenager. Immediately taking ownership over something an old guy told you about like yesterday.
Look, good against remotes is one thing. Good against the living, that's something else.
Has anyone more charismatic yet cocky ever lived? The sound design, it's phenomenal, and almost everything was recorded live from whatever Ben Burtt could find rather than created by synthesizers.
I have a very bad feeling about this.
No feelings were harmed in the making of this scene. And the scale of the Death Star is off the charts, almost as big as a moon.
That's no moon.
I said almost. Ish.
Who's the more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows him?
Eloquence.
TK-421, do you copy?
Resourcefulness.
Listen, if you were to rescue her, the reward would be...
What?
well, more wealth than you can imagine. You'll get it.
I'd better.
You will.
Knowing and playing to your audience. Seems like you only need to convince Chewie, though.
I can't see a thing in this helmet.
See, that explains that. You're forgiven for your terrible aim, Stormtroopers. Also, that wasn't Luke saying that line, it was Mark Hamill, but Lucas let it fit, so he left it in.
Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now, thank you. How are you?
Negotiation skills.
Boring conversation anyway.
The Jedi are extinct. Their fire has gone out of the universe. You, my friend, are all that's left of their religion.
I love that the Emperor is clearly still keeping his Sith identity a secret. Not even high-ranking officials within the Empire have a clue.
Looks like you managed to cut off our only escape route.
Maybe you'd like it back in your cell.
And this is one great thing that makes the Star Wars films appeal to mass audiences. Action scenes are never straight-up fights. They're always some wit and sarcasm and back and forth from our friends.
Somebody has to save our skins.
What an incredible smell you've discovered.
Compliments?
I'll get my tongue down. Where? Let go of me, it disappeared!
I'm just realizing this is the first instance of there's always a bigger fish. The bigger fish in this case being the garbage masher.
I got a bad feeling about this.
No feelings were harmed in the making of this scene. I mean, the door didn't open all the way up, and Luke did say,
I can't see a thing in this helmet.
so it's absolutely realistic. Though I never noticed he tries to rub his head through the helmet after.
They're heading to the prison level. If you hurry, you might catch them.
Quick thinking from 3PO.
You stand guard.
Since it's become painfully clear you can't possibly navigate doors that are a few feet lower than normal.
One thing's for sure, we're all gonna be a lot thinner.
Oh, no matter how deadly the situation, there's always time for a dad joke.
Somebody get this big walking carpet out of my way.
Sensitivity.
Seeing that new BT-16.
So that's what the troopers in Rogue One were talking about. Background small talk from Stormtroopers does make you feel a little sympathy for them in the end.
Get back to the ship! Where are you going?
Courage. And accepting reality. Creepily rescuing your princess sister. Just the attention to detail when they
Close the blast door.
and I assume it's just as fun to watch when they
Open the blast door. Open the blast door.
first look at Vader's saber, and of course it's red. His composure and confidence is the same in Rogue One, even if he had a little more energy for showmanship then. Torturing Leia and dealing with rebels for the last few days, maybe a week? Anyway, it would be tiring. And you've heard this argument before, but these are two old friends, almost long-lost brothers. Not looking to show off in force power, just dueling, almost for old time's sake. One is at least an octogenarian and the other is more machine than man. They already had their big knockdown, drag-out battle on Mustafar where they threw everything they had at each other. This duel is more about taunting each other, and I really think Obi-Wan is just trying to distract Vader long enough to allow Vader's two children to escape unnoticed. Sort of interesting that Obi-Wan is demonstrating Star Wars universe immortality by becoming one with the Force that Sidious said only the dark side knew, thus Vader's disbelief. Also, self-sacrifice, since letting Vader win-ish would be the only way to make sure Luke left him behind. Something I love about this dogfight, what are space battles called? Anyway, I love that each person, droid, Wookiee on the ship takes on a role. Han and Luke man the guns, Chewie flies, R2 puts out fires much like he did in the prequels, Leia is calling out shots and problems, and even 3PO is offering everyone some comic relief. And they all work together to get it done.
We're sure the homing beacon is secure aboard their ship.
They let us go. It's the only explanation for the ease of our escape.
Easy? You call that easy?
They're tracking us.
No, that will not stop anti-Stormtrooper aim from being a win, but it is a great explanation as to why the Stormtrooper accuracy drops when the three amigos are escaping. Finding the rebel home base would be far more important than blasting these fools.
What do you think? You think a princess and a guy like me?
No.
More honesty.
The target area is only 2 meters wide. It's a small thermal exhaust port.
So everyone knows that the Empire gets some flack for having a thermal exhaust port, which we all know is necessary for a thermal reactor. And 2 meters is really small and would be nearly impossible based on everyone's reactions, swamp rats or not. So, while I really like Rogue One's explanation and I'm happy to have been told the story, I never saw it as a plot hole. It would be safe for a space station to assume no one-man fighter would ever get close enough to fire into the exhaust port. And even then, he needed to use the Force to accomplish what the computers couldn't. And fun fact, you all probably thought the trench run took place right here, right? X-Wings even kind of fly towards it in the beginning. Well, you must have been paying as much attention and been as awake as this pilot, because it clearly is nowhere near the equator of the Death Star. Not to mention, this is what the equator trench looks like. It's humongous.
We'll hear all your stories when we get back, all right?
We like old times, Luke. They'll never stop us.
And Lucas's version of redshirting suckers was born. The assault on the Death Star is another great showcase of Lucas using all his tricks, practical explosions, and it's not without stakes and casualties. And while it would be shredded today, the trench assault run transition from matte painting to miniature is pretty fantastic. And obviously you gotta get Vader off the Death Star and into the final action sequence, but this is also a hint to him actually being Luke's father like Ben says.
He was the best star pilot in the galaxy.
Slaughtering these 5 like noobs. And up until Red Leader dies, there's little to no score during the entire attack, really adding to the tension.
What?
Yahoo! Han Solo to the rescue! Anti-Stormtrooper aim, and what an important moment for Luke that really sets him on the path to the Force and becoming a Jedi. He literally saves the day and becomes the hero by listening to Ben and using the Force. Also, yup. Hardcore yup. Who's Carrie? But it's one of those little things that adds to the charm of this movie. Look, I'll button my shirt, but the vest stays. I know, hashtag where's Chewie's medal. But Han's the one that saved the day, Chewie just flew him there. Also, don't you know Wookiees hate medals? And R2's medal is on the inside, with all the parts they fix. His reward is being allowed to live. I could never cover everything I think and feel about this film, so here's what I think is important. Star Wars is a hero's journey. Scratch that. Star Wars is the hero's journey, an adventure film like no other. It's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but it's clearly futuristic to us. Space travel? Laser swords? Members of different evolved species all getting along? What makes Star Wars so different, and I think what initially turned a lot of people off about the prequels, is that A New Hope presents a lived-in, realistic, dirty, grimy, malfunctioning universe. I understand the reasons for the prequels being shiny and new, but we'd already seen that in the rest of sci-fi. This is what made Star Wars unique. Most people probably don't need to be told why this film is great, but some of you younglings have avoided these movies because they're old-looking and boring, and the acting is a little weird.
What are you talking about?
Maybe even a little campy?
There'll be no one to stop us this time.
But I want you to know it's worth it. Watch them. Even if you just watched this video and haven't seen the movies, watch them. Yes, Travis, you have to watch them. There are laws against turning 40 and not having seen the original Star Wars. There's still time. He's never gonna watch them now. I've given Lucas a mildly hard time about the additions, but I understand the feeling that your final product released to the public wasn't up to the standards you'd set for yourself, or your vision at the time. That's why no one will ever see the first 3 videos I created. Well, ever again. And some of the updates were great. Enhanced sound, corrected exposures, and color saturations show the beauty of the world he created in a new and sharper way. This scene makes a whole lot more sense now that it's not just Stormtroopers realizing they do indeed outnumber Han, but actually having a hangar full of troopers. But even in 1977, Lucas was ahead of the game. The decisions he made that we take for granted now that were laughed at by the likes of Brian De Palma, like a solid gold, prim and proper yet roughed up robot and a wisecracking trash can that never speaks any English at all. Or these helmets, or that he created laser swords. Regardless of your opinions of the future, Lucas deserves our praise for this film. I know we didn't make it alone. We have Steven Spielberg and a bunch of other people to thank, especially the directors of the rest of the trilogy. But what we see here and everything that came after is thanks to George Lucas's vision. And I do believe his vision was vast. He claims the original draft was 200 pages long, so he focused in on the first act to turn it into A New Hope. It's amazing how small this story actually is when you consider the entire saga. Was it like a week? Ironically, the movie my wife thinks is a little slow was a breakneck pace in the 70s. Like I talked about already, no world intros, no explanations, it's just taken for granted that we know what's going on and gives us an insider feeling, making the world so enticing. And that's just the world. The characters are on their own level.
Here's where the fun begins.
Luke's progression through these films is such a satisfying character arc. I'll obviously get into it more as we move through the trilogy, but we're introduced to Luke as a young, tad whiny,
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
orphan looking to the stars, believing there's something more to life, a greater purpose. Everything about Luke in A New Hope is naive. He's bright-eyed even after the death of his aunt and uncle. He's excited to learn about the Force and join Ben in his adventure. He starts out a kid in every sense at the beginning of this film, and by the end has taken his first steps towards being a hero. In A New Hope, Darth Vader is really nothing more than a symbol to Luke. He represents losing Ben and his father. And I think it's fair to say that since Luke is unaware of his Force power, or even its existence a few days prior, Vader isn't aware of Luke. With only 12 minutes of screen time, I don't think Lucas had any clue how much we would all latch on to Vader. He was unique, scary, and man was he huge. There are quite a few themes, but talking about the main characters leads me to my favorite theme.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
The message that different types of people can come together for a common goal. The farmer, the princess, and the criminal. I know, we're supposed to call him a scoundrel, a rogue. But he's also a murderous outlaw, whom we all love. There's also the wizard, the carpet, the dandy, and the real hero. But it's what makes Han's return to save the day in the end such a great payoff. He makes it clear throughout the film that he's all about that paper.
Good's the reward if you ain't around to use it.
I don't know. I can imagine quite a bit.
17,000. Those guys must really be desperate.
By returning, he reveals that deep down he cares about more, and as Leia awkwardly puts it,
Hey, I knew that was more to you than money.
and so we fall in love with all the characters quickly. Another important motif is the use of color. Red versus blue, Imperial officers in dark colors, Luke and Leia in light. Han is caught somewhere in the middle wearing both light and dark colors. My favorite is the fake white of the Stormtroopers that's just covering up the blackness underneath, much like the Emperor in the prequel trilogy, still pretending to be the good guys. What makes this film great is the saga it started. The sheer number of people, myself included, that watch this film over and over is a testament to its longevity. Empire might go down as the best, but this is where it all started. Since a teaser frame for next week seems superfluous, let's take a vote on what surprisingly Christmas movie I should do in a few weeks. It doesn't mean I won't get to them all eventually, and also not necessarily one per year, but just for this holiday season.
Hey, Luke. May the Force be with you.